Hi YouTube, welcome to MA Academy C++ pointers tutorial series. Now in this tutorial, I will show you guys what is a pointer to a pointer. So let's get started. So in here, you can see that whenever you declare and initialize a variable, it gets a chunk of memory. So in here, when you see that I'm saying int num is equal to 2123. So this 2123 gets assigned a block of memory, which in this case is 2123 in here, and depending on the data type, it gets assigned that many bytes in the memory. So since an integer is the 4 bytes, so it gets assigned 4 bytes inside the memory. But then you create a pointer, and that pointer, you can say that this is the pointer, and you're saying it's equal to address of num. So whatever the address of this is, we are assigning it to p. So now p is pointing to that address. So whenever you create a pointer to a pointer, so it means that this pointer that you're now creating, it points to the pointer that is already pointing to a variable or anything else. So in here we are saying int q is equal to the address of p. So in here you can see that this is the q, and this is pointing to p, and then p in turn is pointing to this variable in here. So whenever there is a pointer to a pointer, you use two asterisks in here. So in here you can see that before or there are two asterisks preceding q, so it means that it is a pointer to a pointer. So it means that it's pointing to a pointer that is pointing to another data type. So this q is pointing to p, and then p is pointing to 2123. So how does it look like? It looks something like this. So this is the number. So we say number is equal to 2123, so 2123. Then of course it gets assigned, it gets put inside the memory, and that chunk of memory will have an address. So in this case we are assuming it's 1100C. So this is the address of this memory. Then we create a pointer, p. So p will of course, since we are saying p is equal to num, so the address of num is 100C. So p's contents will be 100C in here, and then p will have its own address. So in here, if you look at this part in here, p is equal to this. So p is pointing to this address in here. So in here we can see that this is the address of num. Then what we do, we say int q is equal to the address of p. So what does it mean? It means that this q will contain the address of p. So in here you can see that the address of p is 1008, so q contains 1008. So let's look at it inside this program in here. So I've already created it. So in here we are saying int num is equal to 2123. Then we are saying p is pointing to num, and then we are creating this pointer to a pointer. So it's called q, and it's pointing to p. So p is a pointer to is a pointer, and this q is a pointer to a pointer. So when we say cout q, so what does q print? So in here when we do it, q should print its own address. So q's address is 1004. So when you print it, it gives us address of q. So in here, by the way, you can see that these addresses in here as well. So I will explain it in a few minutes, but just because these addresses are very long, I think it will be easier to explain it with the help of the diagram. So this is the address of operator. So whenever you precede a variable with it, it will give us the value of that, or the address of that variable. So when we do that, it gives me the address of the q variable. So the address of it is 1004. So it will print 1004. Then we say print q. So q, what it means? It means show me the contents of the q. So the contents of the q is what? 1008. So 1008 is the address of p in here. So that's what it prints on a screen. Then we say print, we use one asterisk, and then we say print it. So what does it mean? So what does it print? So it means print whatever it is pointing to. So in here, when we say do that, so it prints me whatever this q is pointing to. So this q is pointing to p, and it's showing me its address. So if you remember in the previous tutorial, I used the dereferencing operator. So when we said int p is equal to num, so whenever we use the asterisk beside the p, it showed us the contents of this num in here because p was pointing to it. This time it's the same. So when we say show me asterisk q, it shows me the contents of this in here, which is 100C. Then we say print asterisk asterisk q. So we did cover this one. Then we say cout asterisk asterisk q. So this asterisk asterisk q, it shows me the contents of the pointer to which the pointer to which we are pointing is pointing to. So the pointer that we are pointing to is P, and P is pointing to num. So it gives what? 2123. So this 2123 is the contents of the num variable. So when we use two asterisks, it gives us the address of this one. When we use one asterisk, it gives us the address of this. And when we don't use an asterisk, it shows us the contents of it. And when we use a ampersand, it gives us the address of this variable Q. This is how I've created another diagram, so it might probably help. So when you're using one asterisk, it gives us the contents of this in here, and when you're using two, it gives us the contents of this one in here. So let's look at this as well. So when you're saying cout q, so we can see that this is the address of the q variable. Then we are saying cout q itself. So this was the address of q, and this shows me the contents of q. So the contents of q in here, we saw that q contains the address of p. So immediately below it, if we say cout address of p, so these two lines should contain the same address in here. So let's run it. So in here you can see that these two numbers, these two addresses are the same. Why? Because in here I'm saying show me the contents of q, and in here I'm saying show me the address of p. Since q is pointing to p, so it shows me that. So in here, let's look at this. So when we say print the address of p, so this is the address of p, and when we are saying show me the contents of q, so you can see that they are both the same. So this is what we get. Next, let's delete it. Then we are saying print. Then here we are using an asterisk, and then we are saying q. So what does it mean? It means print whatever the variable to which, or the pointer to which we are pointing contains. So in here we can see that this is 100C, and this 100C is the address of num. So in here it's printing 100C. So in here if we run it again, so we can see that it says 508. So what is this when we print this q in here? So it prints 100C, which is this one, 100C. So this 100C is the address of num in here. So if we say below this cout address of num, and we do an indel, so let's run it quickly again. So now we can see that third and fourth lines, these two addresses are the same because they are pointing to the same thing, or they contain the same thing. Then we use two q's, or two asterisks and the q. So it means that show me whatever it's pointing to. So in here we can see that q is pointing to p, and then which is pointing to num. So when we do that, it shows me the contents of num. So we can see that one asterisk gets us one node to the right, and then two asterisks gets us two nodes to the right, which in this case is num, the contents of num. So when we print it, it says 2123, which we can see in here. So this is it for this one, guys. If you have any questions, suggestions, or recommendations, feel free to put it in the comment section below. And if you found this tutorial useful, make sure to share it with your friends, and I will see you guys in the next one.